Well, hey, go, Mama.
Hi, everyone. This is God Talk, and this is Thursday, September 26th. So happy to see everyone here. And tonight we're talking about voting. So we'll just jump right in with our introductions. The way we do introductions, just say the name you want to be called, your preferred pronouns. And our icebreaker today is, do you have a favorite number?
Yeah, what I do, I don't care.
So I'm Carol.
We'll pick one.
What's that?
We'll pick one.
Okay. I'm Carol, she, her, and I like I mean, there's always the lucky 7, but I kind of lean toward the number 13 just because it's so just
Maligned.
toward the underdog.
May I go, guys?
Yes, you may go next.
Okay, hey, okay, bye-bye. What you get? I'm back, okay, yeah, but I don't get back, I am Michael.
Said I'm Marco. He, him, King Marco or Army Marco. And what's your favorite number?
Go get in my bouquet.
30, because it's your birthday?
Yeah, my bouquet got cool.
Birthday's coming up. Okay. All right. Okay.
Nice.
Suzette, you want to go next?
Oh, I was just contemplating. I'm Suzette, she, her, and my favorite number, I really never even thought about this, but so crazy. I'm gonna say my favorite number is 3 because everything good to me comes in threes. I feel like it's the Trinity, and whenever I know this isn't a nice alignment, but whenever I gamble, if you get 3 of something in a row, you win, and so 3 is a good number for me. Sorry, I had to pull that out of somewhere.
You want Lynn to go next?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, go gay.
Okay, I'm Lynn, she, her. And I had never thought about a favorite number. But the one after you asked the question, the number that popped in my head is 7. And I think maybe because it's the month that I was born in, and it's the cardinal number. So I think 7 is probably it. Yeah.
Okay, how about Adrian?
Hi, my name is Adrian. He, him. For favorite numbers, I don't know. I guess first thought was gonna just be 19 because that's my birthday day. So 19 as well. Although if I had to pick another one that was not as obvious, I think I might just go with more math side and go with pi because it's 3.14 and you get to eat pie. So I mean, come on. That's
You can go together, okay? I'll buy you that.
Craig next.
Hey, you like a game.
Okay.
all right. So my name is Craig Bucket. Mostly he, him pronouns, but I don't really care one way or the other. My favorite number is 8. I don't know why. I just always liked that number. But I'm Googling it right now, and it says the number 8 has many meanings in the Bible, including new beginnings. The number 8 represents new beginnings, such as the order after Jesus' death on the cross. So there you go.
Wow, nice.
Okay. Hey, you guys like a game.
Okay.
And also, 8 on its side is infinity.
Oh, I love that. Yes. That's awesome. All right, Leo and then Jared.
Hey,
My name is Leo. Pronouns he, him. I never really thought about it. I guess I could say 0 because of mathematics as well. So you could either go negative or you could go positive. So yeah.
Hi everybody. Jared, pronouns, everything. Yeah. I'm going to, on this God talk, I'm going to stereotypically go for 7, right? It is the universal axiom, right? Like in multiple different spiritual traditions, right? 7 is a big deal, right? Like 7 is the number of progress, of spiritual enlightenment, of getting as close to the divine as possible, right? That's the number, right? So yeah, absolutely, 100%.
okay.
I never thought of it that way.
Hey, guy.
This leaves Kreger.
I got you, guy. I will.
I'm Kreger, he, they. My favorite number is 1,967,453,223.
Wow.
Oh my God, you guys,
Wow. Okay.
Is that a reference, Gregor?
You wanna tell us why?
I'm smiling because I just made all of that up.
We did
That's
not
awesome.
know.
Folks,
I like big numbers. I love spreadsheets. I love spreadsheets, and I work with hundreds of millions of dollars every day, and so I love the big numbers, but the billions only if it's profits, not losses.
Okay. All right. I like that.
Okay. Well, Suzette had suggested last week, maybe y'all have thought about this, that we talk about if we're going to vote and why or why not. And don't say like who you're voting for or anything, but why don't we go in the opposite order? We'll start with Kreger.
Yes, I plan on early voting because since I start working at 5 in the morning, I could usually get to the polls around 2 in the afternoon. And so in the past, it's worked out really good for me to early vote instead of trying to take time out of the middle of, or the lines tend to be longer, I think, on actual voting day. So I try to get it done early. So if I can, I'll be there on October 21st at 2 o'clock. And when I retire, I actually want to be one of them people that volunteer. I can sit there at the early voting for 2 weeks and help people sign in, and oh, you forgot your sticker. You forgot your sticker.
I like the little old lady voice you added. That'll be great. Okay.
Okay, you go.
All right, Jared.
Hi, did Lynn check in?
I think we skipped Linda.
No,
No, it was you
Lynn
two.
did her check in right after Suzette.
I got
okay.
you. Just making sure. Okay, sorry. Crazy day. Hi. Let me see. Yes, I'm going to vote this season because I love my husband. Right.
Normally he does not vote.
Yeah, because I mean, it's always. I was very jaded after getting excited about Obama being elected, right, and then him, not delivering like on the goods, right. And so that that really I really crushed a lot of my spirits towards the two-party system. And so like that being said, right, like it's like I love my husband, right? And so like it is something that I'm essentially you know, like it is a privilege that so many people don't get to experience, right? Like you know, like I serve many clients with a criminal record. You get a criminal record, you can't do it. Many clients that are not documented or something, right? And if you're not documented, then you don't get that privilege, right? And so it's like, yeah, we lived in a terrible, horrifying place where people can just do whatever the heck they want if they got money, and it's still a privilege that we need to not take for granted. So my husband's been doing a good job at modeling that right for me, right, and like really helping me to see that. And it's really important to also in your practice while you are doing that to do other things, because voting's never enough. I think it's
my God, back.
Good point, he said. Okay, Leo.
I plan on voting, and also like Kreger, I plan on voting early because I will not plan on waiting 2 hours just to vote on election day. But yeah, that's my plan.
Oh yeah, Republican.
Oh, okay. You go,
All right, Craig.
You go, please.
Definitely plan on voting. Also plan on voting early because election day is always crazy, and definitely busier than the other days. So I want to get it out of the way as soon as possible. And I do not, we're not allowed to say who we're voting for or get into it. I'm going to say it anyways. So do I like all of Kamala's policies? No. But am I going to vote for her? Absolutely. I think perfection is the enemy of progress. The end.
That's another really good point. All right, Adrian.
Go.
Okay. But so yes, I am planning on voting, and like the majority here, to avoid many of those long waiting lines, I do plan on doing it voting early. I'm actually kind of strategizing of like maybe skipping the first couple of days, so that way, because I feel like there's gonna be a mass rush of people at the beginning, and so it's like, all right, let's go like 3 or 4 days and then go. Um, and yeah, definitely it's a bit of I think it's always important to vote no matter what, because I know so many people think, what's the point? It's just, my vote's not gonna count or whatever, or it's not in the majority or what, or but the person might not end up winning or etc. But my manager kind of makes like a good point always. It's like you need to have a seat at the table, and if there's no seat at the table, then bring your own chair. So it's so being able to at least vote and point your and give your voice out there kind of also kind of makes you do, if you don't like something, it's like, hey, well, I voted for this person and I like this, I did not like that as well. And so it kind of gives you like a bit more of a voice if you actually want to do something, because sometimes it's like, well, you didn't vote and yet you like to complain a lot. It's like, so what did you do to actually do it better? So that's why I think voting is quite important too.
All right. Next is Lynn, who, by the way, Jared, she had the same favorite number as you.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely, I plan to vote. When the Voting Rights Act was passed in 1965, I was 13. And so I am of the generation that remembers when Black people couldn't vote, when there was even more of an effort for Black people to vote than there is right now. So yes, I feel, and for the people who fought, bled, and died for African Americans to have the right to vote, for me, it's a necessity, and I voted every year since I was able to vote, since I was 18. So yeah, I definitely will be voting. And like you guys, although I couple last presidential election, we had our ballots sent to us, and we sent them in. But I'm not doing that this time because I just, when with the post office and whether or not it gets there, and checking online to see if they accept it or if there's something wrong with it. So I'm just going to go in person. Although because I'm a senior citizen, they could send me a ballot and I could fill it out and mail it in. But I don't think I'll ever trust that again. So yeah, definitely vote. And then the other thing, not just voting. There are a lot of people who don't think that voting is important, and they say, "Well, why does my vote count?" And I have had people in the past say that to me. But the truth is that the way this country is built, voting is just the first step. Because after you give someone your vote and put them in office, then as a citizen, your next step is to hold them accountable for how they behave and what they do in office. And I think a lot of people just think, okay, well, I voted, and so now I'm going to go back to my life. And then, before you know it, it's 2 years later or 4 years later, and the person that you voted for hasn't done anything that you asked or they said they were going to do. And so here you are again, and it's time to vote again. So I think the other part of citizenship is not just to vote, but also to call your congressman, to call your representative, to know who represents you at City Hall, to not just to vote, but also to let them know that I'm watching you. You're here. That this is a country of the people, by the people, and for the people. And so we have a responsibility to do, not just to vote, but also to hold our politicians' feet to the fire after we vote, and make sure that our voices are heard then too. So
Thank you.
that's my take on that.
All right, Suzette.
Well, I 100% will vote. This is the first time I'm voting in Fort Bend County in a presidential election, and this county is big time red over here. And I'm super intimidated by that. I go to the Chamber of Commerce meetings and they pray, which is okay with me, but I also know they had Troy Nels come to one of the luncheons, and it was very difficult to sit there and listen and not be able to feel like I could say anything. And then so I know I'm going to be in line with people that are not going to be voting like me, and that's okay. But I've also been watching the documentary on the January 6th, the one that's from a couple years ago, and I've never watched it before, and it absolutely positively made me sick watching it. I cannot believe that happened. I cannot believe that our country let it happen. I cannot believe that nothing more was made of it, for whatever. They let those police officers sit there for 4, 5, 6 hours and get beaten with no help. And it was all over the vote, it was all over the vote. So I'm going to be paying very close attention to, and Lynn made a very valid point with, I'm not going to vote by mail because of the things that could be potentially misinterpreted there. Because if you vote by mail, your vote could be discounted. Who knows? We don't know what there was so much mail, so much, talked about mail-in ballot fraud, and I just don't want to get in the middle of that. So I'm gonna go on up there to that red voting booth and place my order for president. But this is the scariest election in my whole life. I mean, the things that I'm seeing now on TikTok, and it's all scary. I don't want to be afraid, but I'm just saying, it just seems so just chaotic and disorganized and unreal. It feels very surreal. I hope we have a peaceful transition of power. That's all I can say.
That's a very good point. I'm gonna kind of go before you, Marco, and I'm just gonna say, the documentary that I remember from watching years ago that impressed me so much was about the women gaining the right to vote. And I mean, I've also seen several movies, Lynn, that referenced that time, like the Voting Rights Act. Read a lot of books about that time period. I mean, I was alive, but not old enough to pay attention to that. And anyway, that just the fact that people have fought so hard and been imprisoned and died and been beaten and things, just to gain the right to vote, I think is really, really super important. And I think it was Bob Stubblefield that I remember saying something about, you're not marrying the candidate. They don't have to be absolutely perfect. But I like what you said, Lynn, about holding them to accountability for what they do say they're standing for. And yeah, it does seem like a pretty clear-cut choice in some ways. But I want to bring up an issue. I want to see what y'all think. I've been turning this over for many years. Marco at one time got registered to vote, actually, at an Albuquerque Pride event, and they had people signing voters up, and he got registered at that time. And then we didn't use it. And we've been talking about it a lot. I've been talking to his boss. We've been kind of discussing the issues. I've been trying to feel out how much he understands about the issues. And I mean, I do think that there wouldn't be any way for us to do it besides a mail-in ballot, because I think just the physical limitations of even if he could read the right candidates, just filling in the circle and everything, I think would be physically difficult for him, and one of us helping, I think would look very suspicious. So I'd like to know what y'all think about the ethics of specifically about Marco, but voting, and maybe anyone with.
Well, I have a question. Is there someone to help them? Like, say Marco had nobody to help him. Are there people that
People
do that?
can help. That it's on the ballot, on the ballot. You are allowed to help, but you have to sign that you are the person who helped him. You have to acknowledge that you are the person that helped him vote. So your
Gotcha.
name would be there. I mean, the two mail-in ballots that I have received. There is a space for if there's like a statement like if anyone helped you complete this ballot, then they must sign their name and print their name here. So, and I would imagine that that's for people, for instance, who have physical disabilities where they can't, color in, and so it's the same thing that you're talking about.
Yeah, one of my friends
Um,
is blind, and I imagine
Right.
you would have to have
Right.
help. But I do think that poll workers can help someone who has physical disabilities, but I'm not really sure how that all works. And so I think Marco is, definitely going to be influenced by my opinions but
Yeah.
I do think he has his own mind about a lot of things. So maybe this is the year.
Yeah. So just go ahead and get him registered to vote and request a mail-in ballot and
Does
go from there.
anybody have other thoughts on that?
I think if he wants to vote, that he should definitely, have the right to vote. Well, he already has the right, but he should vote if he wants to vote. Some people don't want to vote, and they have the right, but they don't want to. So I'm a firm
Like to
believer that
express his
everyone who
opinion.
wants to should.
My mother, on the other hand, I would almost I'm afraid I might discourage her just because I know she's been influenced by her uh by her neighbors, by the other residents. And anyway, but I don't know that she would even want to try that. I don't know. So
One thing I just wanted to about the whole like absentee voting, voting by mail kind of thing. That's just like scares the crap out of me. Is how brazen some activities are with regards to that. Like there was a piece on the news. I'm looking at it right now, September 25th. Wisconsin mayor carts away absentee ballot drop box. Says he did nothing wrong. So it was literally a drop box placed in front of like City Hall or something like that. Um, and he just came up in a hard hat and a like a dolly and took the box and just wheeled it away
oh my gosh.
and was like, I'm a government employee, I can do this. Just straight up in,
And
but
that
there's
was,
pictures of him online and he just like put on his little gloves and his little hard hat and just took it and wheeled it away.
oh my gosh. And where was
Uh, it was Wausau, Wisconsin.
Oh,
And that
wow.
was the mayor of Wausau, Wisconsin.
And he was
Just straight
never
up.
prosecuted or anything?
This happened a few days ago.
Yeah, it just happened.
Oh
Well,
wow.
there'll be something about that, I'm sure. I mean,
I'm sure, but
the
that's just
brazenness is, but like you said, the brazenness, in saying, well, I already know how you're going to vote, so therefore I'm not going to allow you the opportunity to vote, or taking away ballots that people have completed and dropped in a box and just taking the box. The brazenness is I don't know. There isn't a word, a polite word that I can use to to describe
Yeah,
it.
right. Who's to say that the people putting ballots in that box that he stole aren't his people?
Right, right.
Yeah.
So,
That's true, but I think one of the ways that certain that the vote is pushed one way or the other. A lot of these a lot of the voting the recent voting laws, the things that have changed state to state, they're pretty partisan. I mean, I've never I don't know of a single incident of a Democrat putting forth voter laws that affect the
And
vote.
suppress the vote. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I didn't want to say suppress, but that's pretty much exactly what they do. The laws in Texas, I just did a little bit of research, and I do think that that being in New Mexico, I have a little bit less fear about the tampering with the ballots and things like that. But still, I think we have to be careful no matter where we are. But in Texas, there are 5 laws that 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 are affecting the vote, and one of them is early voting restrictions. So there are more restrictions in New Mexico. I didn't even really realize that it was a state difference, but it just seems like our early voting starts months before before it starts in Texas, and it's just like open all day, just for a long time before it starts in Texas. And one of the reasons that vote was supposedly pushed through, one of the proponent comments for that is that it would decrease congestion and streamline the voting process, which it just seems to me like it does the opposite. I mean, it may streamline some of the mail-in things, but that's not where the congestion is. The congestion is with the lines. It's with the physical voting, and especially on the day of. That's just so. And the same thing with ballot drop-offs. So I mean that, but you're all saying lots of reasons to be careful about all of that. So what about people that have trouble getting to the polls, or in I remember in Georgia that was such a big thing a few years ago about not being able
Souls to the
give
polls.
people
Yeah.
food or drink in line and things like that. So
Right. Well, there are always organizations and churches and in the Black community particularly, there everyone is aware of who might need a ride to vote. It's like a family thing for the most part. That everybody, if Aunt Bessie needs a ride, then somebody's going to make sure that she gets to the polls. But the whole idea of one party is to say we don't want everybody to vote. And then the whole idea of the other party is we want everybody to vote. Because when everybody votes, then the opportunities for every voice to be heard are greater. Whereas when you're suppressing the vote, then you're only hearing. It's like you're only hearing one point of view. So all of us here, may have a different point of view about the candidate that we choose to vote for. But and that's a good thing. So I mean, I don't care about who people vote for as long as they do, and that their right to vote is not suppressed unless it's for some legal reason. So
well, a lot of the and there are just more restrictions about like increased penalties for election violation and things like that. So
but that's just such a straw man, because I think I read a report that's like in the last 8 years they've prosecuted like 23 cases of illegal voting in the nation. It just doesn't happen. Nobody stands in line and says, I'm going to vote twice, or very few people do. Or there was one guy in 2020 that was convicted of that voted twice, and he happened to be a Republican, by the way. But I'm gonna say less about that. So people don't don't cheat. Everybody know it's
Yeah,
one
right.
person,
But
one
one of the
vote.
things but yes, we do want everyone to vote. But
Yes.
many of the voter suppression laws are clearly targeted at certain groups. And I mean, statistically, we all know that certain groups in terms of socioeconomics, of race, of just location, there are certain groups that are more likely to vote one way or the other. And so a lot of these voter laws recognize that and are targeting that. And this is not a new thing. This is
No, it's not.
this goes back to,
Goes back to the 60s when blacks didn't have the right to
it
vote.
goes back way before that. It goes back
Yeah, to the 20s when women didn't have the right to vote. Yeah.
Back as soon as slavery was abolished.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
when we started talking about things like the Electoral College and things that would give, like, plantation owners, help them maintain the power and
Right.
maintain the maintain their districts and their anyway. But gerrymandering is one of the ways that they move the boundaries and things like that. Certain polling areas being closed, all of those kind of things. In Texas, I think the one that applies the most to that is the voter ID law. That means that people who have trouble getting an ID, people who are like homeless or things like that, who have trouble getting or keeping an ID, that I think that the person who engineered that law is thinking that that they would vote a certain way.
Yeah,
So,
another thing they did in 2020 in Harris County, you could vote 24 hours a day, and so they immediately eliminated that. So, and that was geared toward people who, have to work the shift. Say I work 11 to 7,
right.
or I work, and this is the time that I can vote, and so can't do that anymore. Yeah, but there are all kinds of ways to suppress, and it is always, you're right, it always has been, because we don't want this segment to vote, we don't want that segment to vote. And I just like to say to people that if your vote didn't count, if it wasn't important, they wouldn't be trying so hard to keep you from doing it. So
Okay. Was that Leo or Jared that has your hand up? Okay.
And so, I think that the idea of brazenness, right, that Adrian put forward, right, and I think it's Craig, not it's Craig, because like people jumping around. Sorry, my bad. My bad. Put forward was actually a really good point, because really it would be so nice, right, if members of our community had, I don't know, the audacity of these people in positions of power when we were conducting, I don't know, our politics, I don't know, our advocacy, I don't know, our really anything, right? Because that fervor, right, that the right has when it comes to causes, right? That energy, right, is not, it doesn't exist in ways that existed in the revolutionary times where people were fighting just to gain the rights and stuff. And so, like, the audacity of this person, right, to just be able to in broad daylight, put on a construction hat, right, do the things, right, the audacity of these people in positions of power to gerrymander, to rig, to make these laws, right, the audacity of these people, we talk about that, right, but we also, where are the examples on the other side of them actually fighting, Where's the fight? Because what I'm hearing, right, is that one side's fighting and the other side's right. And like with that, there's no fear because there's no fight on one hand, right? There's no fear to make messed up laws that isolate and destroy communities of color, of specific gender demographics, how people just who weren't born on the right state line or whatever, right? There's no fear because no one fights. And so for me, right, in my generation, like voting's great, right? What we care about is things like revolution, is things like fight, is things like, like actually doing the thing that Lynn was saying, which is holding people to the fire, right? Like that is so important because it's not happening.
Well, we might need to talk at some point about people that do fight. So,
Yeah, because there really are some.
yeah,
I mean,
there are some heroes.
Vietnam War protester, racism, police brutality protester in my 20s. My generation, we were fighting.
Yeah, y'all were fighting.
We were fighting. I think it may have skipped a generation, but we were fighting.
Yeah.
Because in my 20s, I was a militant. I've been an Angela Davis type all my life.
Just what bothers me is the thought that just because they're passing all these laws that make it more difficult for certain people to vote, and then we all sit here and think that those certain people are just laying down on their living room floor saying, I give up. If someone's passing a law that's making it more difficult for me to vote because I'm transgender or gay, or I'm gonna double down and get to that damn poll if it kills me. So
look at what happened when
I agree
Obama
with
was
Jared.
elected.
If these people aren't fighting to get to the poll, then I would like to help them figure out where that fight is. If they need a ride, I'll give a ride.
Yeah, that's okay. I think y'all are both talking on the same wavelength. Let's make sure Craig has a chance to. He's had his hand up a while now.
Just a little bit, not as much as others. So just wanted to quickly flip back to the Marco question. So I just popped on Google real quick. The Q&A answer on sos.nm.gov says, yes, the Constitution of New Mexico only places restrictions on persons who are unable to mark their ballots and who are concurrently also unable to communicate their voting preference. If you can mark your ballot or tell someone how to mark your ballot, you can still vote. So as long as those criteria are met, the answer would be yes. So there is your answer. The other piece that I wanted to note, and I think this was overturned, that I loved during COVID that was enabled for the first time in Harris County, when we lived in Harris County. We are also Fort Benders now, and yes, it is very red. All of the Trump signs around us, littered all over the all over the driveways and sidewalks and lawns and everything, can attest to that. But anyways, curbside, drive-in, drive-through voting was spectacular, fantastic. We did that in the MCC parking lot, and loved the hell out of it.
Yeah.
It was
Drop mine off at NRG. Yeah.
It was so wonderful. And I think they took that away. Did they take that away? Yeah.
Yeah, they
just
took it away.
other ways to encourage and suppression of the vote. Because the more people that can vote, the more people who will vote. And usually it's folk in compromised positions who might want to do that. And just typically, just the way things are, largely Republicans will go in person on the day of the actual vote. It just is the way that it is. I don't know why it is that way, but that's just been the case for like all of time. And so yeah, anything to suppress all of the alternative methods to vote is. But that was my favorite. I loved that. I thought that was great. How wonderful you could just drive up, get the little computer, beep bop boop, and then you did your thing.
Yeah, that
Oh, well.
does. Yeah, anything that does sound wonderful. Okay, Lynn, let me just say one thing about that kind of relates to a lot of the previous comments, and I think I mentioned it before. There are what are they called? Clergy poll. Oh, I think I said the name last week, but there are clergy who are trained by people like sojourners to go to the polls and be there with their collar on, just to provide like a prayer cover, to provide just like and they have de-escalated fights at the polls more than once, just to be a peaceful presence and a comfort, and not to do anything, not to help anything like the poll workers help, not to help like that, but to just be there and help keep the peace, help keep the humor. So I'd like to maybe do that someday. Okay, Lynn.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that another thing that happens when people who don't have a long history of voting is that you vote for your candidate and your candidate doesn't win. And so you get discouraged. And then you say, okay, well, I don't think I don't vote again. I can't tell you how, I've been a Democrat all my life. I can't tell you how disappointed that I've been, when Bush won and then Bush won again, and when Reagan won, and when, all of the Republicans won. So, but I never stopped voting. I never said I'm not going to vote. And the other thing is, Hillary Clinton actually won the popular vote. So people weren't staying at home. But Bush got won because of the hanging Chad. So it's not the popular vote that makes the difference. And I think if there's something else we need to talk about, it's the Electoral College, because that's what January 6th was all about. We don't want them to certify the votes from the states, because it's the Electoral College that actually determines who the president is, those 270 Electoral College votes. So we can win very much the popular vote. Trump didn't win the popular vote. And he didn't win, and Biden won the popular vote and the Electoral College. So that's the other thing.
Is there a movement to do anything about the Electoral College? I mean, I've heard little snippets here and there, but I've never seen any very active movement.
It would have to come from Congress. That's something that Congress would have to do because of the way it's set up. And I think people just started paying attention to it because of the last election, when January 6th happened. Certainly. And they were trying to stop it.
Certainly spotlight it.
Yeah. But there have been a lot of presidents who were elected who lost the popular vote but won the Electoral College. So
best meme I ever saw it. They have the map, the lower 48 map, and so they list all the counties and the states that are red, and then the little blue areas, like the tight little areas like New York City and Houston and Los Angeles, that are blue. And so they're trying to say, yeah, but most of the country, it isn't the popular vote for most of the country. And the meme came back and said, yes, but people vote, land doesn't. So it doesn't matter if you live in this huge red state named Montana with 1 billion square acres. red. If you live in Houston with 2 million blue people, there you have it. That's the will of the people.
Right.
So I think electoral college is stupid and it just needs to go away because people vote, land doesn't vote.
Well, there are two things because of the last election. I think and that's why it's so important to not just vote for the president, but also to vote for your representative, because and Ted Cruz is running against Colin Allred. Just a FYI, I'm going to say less about that. But with Congress, the president is the executive, but where the action really happens is in the Senate and the House. And those seats are more as important, if not more important, because that's
Or
where the action is. Yeah, and so
yes.
we have to. The presidential candidate has to have, whichever party has to have the support of the House and the Senate in order to get anything done. So that's the other thing about voting, and a lot of people, I think, maybe are just starting to realize that, or hadn't really connected the two, or Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. She lost the electoral college, so people were voting. We have, and sometimes we win and sometimes we lose. But I believe that this election, I've been watching politics closely since COVID and since January 6th. I watched all of those hearings and all of that testimony live, and it was something that I couldn't believe that I never thought that I would see in America. That patriotism would be trampled upon, and I think this election is really not so much about who the Republican is or who the Democrat is. It's who stands for America. Who stands for America?
And Craig, how do we vote? If it looks,
If it sounds like love, if it doesn't sound like love, I don't, and I know it's hard for politicians. Politicians aren't going to sound all lovey-dovey. But when the orange one gets on TV like he did today and say, and by the way, I was your favorite president of all time. When someone that gets on with such a big ego that is so un-Christ-like, that doesn't sound like love to me, they can't get my vote. I don't even care if they're just blowing smoke. Even if you're just blowing smoke at me and at least sound nice, I would still vote for you because I can't tolerate another 4 years of that squawking baby who never did anything wrong in his whole life, never made one mistake. I will have to not watch the evening news ever for 4 more years if that person gets put back in the White House because I can't stand it.
Yep.
There's absolutely no ownership. There was no ownership of anything ever in the whole time that they were in office the last time. Not that I can't, no one can even tell me one example. But what about the time when has the man ever laughed? When have you ever heard the man actually laugh?
Or smile? When have you seen him smile? Oh,
well,
yeah.
I think I was gonna ask, wrap this up with just kind of where is God in this, but I think you're saying it. I think we're talking about a God of love and justice, and I think that we have some values rooted in that, in that belief about God, that God stands for equality and justice and for love,
And Matthew 25, what about the least of these? What you have done to the least of these, you have also done to me. So if we're supposed to be a nation of people who follow Jesus, our number one priority should be trying to assist and help the least of these, not push them under the rug and hope that they'll go away,
And hold people accountable. For beating up people and for trading and trafficking and really making a mockery of the church. Yeah, like we don't forget that important part, right? Like Jesus was a revolutionary. He wasn't, he was love what comes in multiple flavors, and Daddy Jesus does deliver that paternal feedings to the people who deserve it. So remember that when we're electing people, right? Please harm somebody.
So, Adrian, you said you can't come for a while on Thursdays, as long as they've got that practice. So anything you want to say before we wrap up?
Well,
We're gonna miss you.
well, I'm sure that it won't be the last one. I'll definitely join when I can. But one thing I was thinking about was there are a couple of verses that basically that do state that God appoints leaders, rulers, and kings, So we must pray, that God puts the right leader for the nation as well. Of course, and then they like just like Craig, I'm like Googling on the side, and there was time where it wasn't to God's desire when the Israelites decided to have a king. And I believe that's when Saul became king, right? Because they saw a tall, beautiful man that was strong. And so they're like, we want him as our king. And that wasn't God's will. And then after that, David, who was appointed by God as well. So I think we just need to continue praying that God will put the right person in charge.
Absolutely. That and
David, the
this
gay
is
one, the better ruler.
We need to stay one nation under God.
this is if I could, this is Second Chronicles verse 7, chapter 7, verse 14. And this is what I have lived by since the last election. If my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways. Then will I hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sin and will heal their land. And I honestly believe that this election is God's hand in it. Joe Biden is a devout Catholic. It is he who put forth Kamala Harris's name to be president. She wouldn't be in the spot that she's in any other way. And I think that there are enough of us out here who are praying for our land to be healed. And I'm praying for the best.
Absolutely. Okay. Gregor, will you wrap us up with a prayer?
I sure will. But before I pray us out, I am going to ask for your prayers personally, because tomorrow I'm having a cardiac catheterization. I've had my mother passed away when she was 62, and my older brother passed away earlier this year when he was 62, and I'm 61. So several tests have found a blockage near the heart. So I'm going tomorrow for a catheterization, in which I hope that once they get in there, if they need to put a stent or something, that they can do that. Or I may actually have to go in for open heart bypass, but we'll see how those results turn out tomorrow. So I'm just asking you to hold me in prayer tomorrow morning, if you can think about it. And I love this
Absolutely.
group, and all my church families. I have a lot. So, Holy God, we thank you for this time to gather tonight. And what an interesting subject on voting, and a lot of opinions, and a lot of thought, and a lot of graciousness, and a lot of love was shared in this room this evening. So we're grateful for this time, for this opportunity. And as we go through the rest of this week and into this political season, help us to keep our grace, help us to keep our love, help us to keep our smile, help us to keep the good things that you bestow upon us and within us. And we ask these things in the holy name of Jesus. Amen.
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 Amen. Prayers over you, Craig.
Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. Prayers
Yes.
over
So
you, Craig.
much.
What time is the
I know you're
procedure tomorrow?
struggling with it.
9 o'clock.
Okay.
9 o'clock.
I'll be praying
Thank
for
you.
you for sure.
Love you all.
Bye-bye.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye-bye,
Anything.
everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
Good odds.